Impact Wrestling held night one of their South Philly Showdown tapings last night in Philadelphia at the former ECW Arena, so we're going to get into that. Plus, Impact Wrestling hits a near record low for this week's episode on Access TV. All this and more in today's Impact Wrestling news. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of Impact Wrestling. So let's start off talking about the spoilers from last night's Impact South Philly Showdown television tapings from Friday. Now, as always, guys, I'll give you a few seconds to step out of this video if you wish, because we are going to be talking about spoilers here. If you don't want to be spoiled, I'll give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's talk about some of the big news coming out of last night's television tapings. And in reality, I know we've got a second night to come out of it, but there wasn't a ton of real newsworthy stuff to come out of it. Some fun stuff, and it's going to be interesting to feel the aesthetic. And as I mentioned before, when it comes to Impact, I think that we're going to see more of, well, things are going to happen at the television tapings, backstage segments, things that are being filmed that you don't see and then air on television, a bit like the Moose closing segment on this week's episode of Impact Wrestling. I think we're going to see more of that over the course of the next few weeks. One big thing to talk about, I suppose, coming out of it is that New Japan Pro Wrestling's Rocky Romero competed in a match on the Impact Wrestling television tapings. Now, this isn't a huge surprise. Romero has competed in Impact Wrestling before. Of course, it just goes to continue this crossover in this working relationship that Impact Wrestling has with New Japan Pro Wrestling. Of course, New Japan also has been airing on Access TV now for a while. Occurs on Thursday after Impact Wrestling goes off the air. But he has a match against Eddie Edwards in a losing effort, it must be said. And Rocky Romero certainly is appearing on lots of promotions right now, right? He's appearing in Impact Wrestling. He's part of The Office when it comes to New Japan. And also he's been appearing for AEW as well. He had the easy for me to say, Roppongi Vice reunion with Trent Beretta a couple of weeks ago against the Young Bucks on Rampage. But he was part of a losing effort. I don't know. This is the curious thing, I suppose, is that he faces off against Eddie Edwards. And what's Eddie Edwards doing at the moment? He's the leader of Honor No More. I don't know if he's going to be really playing into that. I don't know if it was just kind of a one-off situation. I'm not really sure where they're going to be going with that one. So that's an interesting one to keep an eye on, because it could be a case of Honor No More starts to go after people from New Japan. I'm not really sure where the direction would be with that one, but I think that's an interesting one to keep an eye out for. Of course, we had a tag team match of Chris Bay and Jay White of the Bullet Club against the Motor City Machine Guns. Won't go into the outcome of that one because, again, I don't want to give out unnecessary spoilers, but that will happen. We also have a new number one contender for the Knockouts World Championship, that being Rosemary. Rosemary is the new Knockouts, is number one contender for the Knockouts Championship. So she is going to be facing, I guess, Tasha Steelz at logic would suggest would be Rebellion. Or it could be at Multiverse of Matches, but it kind of does appear that Multiverse of Matches, every single match is like a person from one company versus someone from another company, or at the very least representing someone from another company. So I don't know if Rosemary versus Tasha Steelz is going to happen at Multiverse of Matches, or if it's going to happen at Rebellion instead. Maybe it will happen just tonight. Maybe it will happen tonight at the latest Impact Wrestling television taping in Philadelphia. That might be what happens there. Again, I still think they're going to be going in the direction of Tasha Steelz versus Mickie James, maybe versus Deonna Purrazzo for Rebellion. We don't have any spoilers on that yet, it must be said, but I think that's the direction they might be going in, but we'll wait and see when it comes to that one. We also have a name when it comes to the third and final spot in the X Division Championship Triple Threat match at Rebellion, and that being Speedball Mike Bailey. He defeated Laredo Kid and Willie Mack to earn the third and final spot in the X Division Triple Threat match at Impact Rebellion. He's going to be joining, of course, Ace Austin and Trey Miguel, and that's going to be what a special match, right? Trey Miguel versus Ace Austin versus Mike Bailey. Sign me up. That is going to be an unbelievable match. If I had to predict right now, again, I still think Ace Austin is going to leave with the X Division Championship then. I think we're going to see a title change. I really do. I'm going to massively contradict myself because, again, I was just about to say, well, I wouldn't be shocked if Trey Miguel does retain. That is probably worth pointing out there. So Mike Bailey versus Ace Austin versus Trey Miguel is very exciting. Very exciting, nevertheless. This is quite an interesting one coming out of the television tapings, and that is that Ring of Honor World Champion Jonathan Gresham defeated Kenny King. Why is this interesting? Well, I suppose it's interesting for several reasons. One being that he's currently the Ring of Honor World Champion, which is now owned, of course, by Tony Khan. And there was a report from Fightful Select, I want to say it was this week or the week prior, basically saying that Jonathan Gresham he's not all elite. I guess he's honor. He's Ring of Honored, because essentially the rumor is that he has signed a contract under Tony Khan to be part of this Ring of Honor brand going forward, which has kind of been in line with everything that he had been saying, prior to coming into Impact Wrestling and doing these shows. We knew he's not under contract to Impact Wrestling. He's not signed a contract of anywhere, and his whole purpose was, I'm keeping my options completely open until I know what's happening with Ring of Honor. I'm going to be wrestling at the Supercard of Honor. He's going to be having that match against Bandito for both Ring of Honor championships. We know that's going to happen. And essentially he said, look, I'm going to wait until then, and if Ring of Honor is still in hiatus or it's in flux or I'm not really sure what's going on, I'll probably sign a contract with Impact Wrestling. And I'm sure Impact have probably made a couple of offers to him. We know that Jordan Grace, his wife, had said that she wanted to have him around more often in Impact Wrestling, and I'm sure she still does. But now that we know what the future is when it comes to Ring of Honor, now that we know that Tony Khan is the owner, and we know a bit more about what Ring of Honor is kind of going to look like going forward. He made the announcement last night of the Briscoes versus FTR for Supercard of Honor, which is fascinating, of course, because one, that match didn't look like it was going to happen. Two, there had been lots of reports that the Briscoes weren't coming into AEW, which they still aren't, but I suppose they could be part of this Ring of Honor brand going forward, considering they are the World Tag Team Champions. But it's also significant, too, because that day, of course, they're facing the Good Brothers. They're facing the Good Brothers at the Multiverse of Matches at WrestleCon. Now, the Supercard of Honor actually happens earlier on in the day, so I guess they figured it out that the Briscoes are going to wrestle FTR, maybe earlier on in the show. I would assume so, considering you've got a World Championship match on that show. Maybe it's the opening match, and then later on that night they're going to be facing the Good Brothers at Multiverse of Matches. But the Jonathan Gresham part is interesting because the report is that he's going to be part of Ring of Honor going forward, and I think Tony Khan is going to be trying to sign people to Ring of Honor contracts or contracts into that Ring of Honor AEW umbrella. He said there is going to be some crossover, but I would assume that we aren't going to see a ton more of Jonathan Gresham appearances in Impact Wrestling because he reportedly is going to be part of this ROH brand under Tony Khan. So certainly significant that he wrestled at these TV tapings, and it might be maybe his final Impact Wrestling match might be at Rebellion or something like that. I mentioned before, this whole Ring of Honor storyline when it comes to Honor No More and Jonathan Gresham and Carrie Silkin and all that kind of stuff, who was backstage at the television tapings last night, is certainly curious because, as I mentioned, we know the future. We know the future of Ring of Honor now. Part of the storyline of Honor No More is that Ring of Honor abandoned these people. It released them all, and it was uncertainty, so they came to Impact Wrestling to show that there was Honor No More, and they showed that there was no honor in Impact Wrestling and all that kind of stuff. But the problem is now they know the future of Ring of Honor, so they have to kind of pivot, in my opinion, to focusing on there being no honor in Impact Wrestling, as opposed to Ring of Honor was terrible to us and we don't know what's going on with Ring of Honor, because we kind of do now. So the Jonathan Gresham appearance is very interesting too. Of course, there was the Lumberjack match between Violent by Design and the Good Brothers for the Impact World Tag Team Championship. We now know that Violent by Design retained those Tag Team Championships, so of course they're going to be defending them in that 8 Tag Team Challenge at Rebellion. Now, it didn't say who the Lumberjacks were, which of course is interesting because, as announced on Impact Wrestling this past week, the Lumberjacks are going to be the teams in that Tag Team Challenge at Rebellion. The reports online just say that it was a Lumberjack match. So if you can let me know in the comment section below, if you were at these South Philly Showdown tapings, you can let me know who the tag teams are going to be at Rebellion in the 8-person and the 8 tag team challenge, rather. Finally, of course, there was the announcement of the street fight, in which Mickie James was going to be facing Tasha Steelz, challenging Tasha Steelz for the Impact World Knockouts World Championship. Now, I said I thought there would be a title change in this match, and there was not. There was not a title change. My predictions when it comes to Impact Wrestling recently have not been great, it must be said. But they did a big angle to close the show in which Chelsea Green and Impact Digital Media Champion Matt Cardona attacked Mickie James. So I've been saying, I said it yesterday, and it was very obvious, going back to Sacrifice, even prior to that, that they were teasing and hyping up that essentially Chelsea Green at some point is going to turn on Mickie James. That was the situation, right? And it's always worth pointing out that whenever someone who is a heel, because of course Chelsea Green's a heel, Matt Cardona is a heel. They turned heel. They turned heel when they attacked Jordan Grace and that whole digital media championship stuff. So of course they're heels. Whenever a heel is suddenly friends with a babyface, it means the heel is going to turn on the babyface at some point. And that's exactly what was going to happen. So Chelsea Green, of course, at Sacrifice, when she broke her wrist in the match against Deonna Purrazzo, and then Mickie James came out and defended her, but had to defend her title right afterwards, arguably lost the title because of Chelsea Green, and all the stuff they've been teasing on Impact Wrestling recently. And of course, she offered on this week's episode of Impact, I'll be by your side, and Mickie James said, no, don't be by my side, all that kind of stuff. That's always laying the groundwork for eventually she's going to turn on Mickie James, and she's just done that. The interesting thing, of course, is that Matt Cardona reportedly attacked her as well, which Matt Cardona has kind of been doing, right? With the Digital Media Championship, he attacked Jordan Grace. He was hesitant at first to face off against her, and then bam, turned heel and attacked her as well. So we're going to see some intergender stuff, it would appear, going forward. Where does this go? Wow, logic would suggest that we're going to get Mickie James versus Chelsea Green. I mean, possibly, if Matt Cardona attacked Mickie James, do we maybe see Nick Aldis return to Impact? I don't know. Maybe we'll find out tonight at tonight's television tapings. I mean, of course, Nick Aldis is the husband of Mickie James. I think he will struggle to make it tonight because isn't tonight the Crockett Cup? I think it's the Crockett Cup. But who is he facing at the Crockett Cup? He's facing Matt Cardona for the NWA World Heavyweights Championship. So we could definitely see something. And I think that's where this one might be going, in that we get Nick Aldis and Mickie James versus Chelsea Green and Matt Cardona, because it ties in with what's going on in the NWA and what's going on in Impact Wrestling. So that might be the direction that they go in. But we'll wait and see when it comes to that one. I do want to talk about this briefly. And again, I know people get upset when I talk about ratings when it comes to Impact Wrestling, but this is significant. It really is significant. And that Impact Wrestling scored a near record low audience on Access TV this week. Now, Thursday's taped edition of Impact Wrestling drew just 68,000 viewers on Access TV, according to Nielsen via Showbuzz Daily. This is down 27.65% from last week's 94,000 viewers for the post-sacrifice episode, which frankly was low anyway. But to go even lower is very significant. Thursday's Impact drew a 0.02 rating in the 18 to 49 key demographic, which is down 33.33% from last week's 0.3 key demo rating. Thursday's Impact, not surprisingly, did not rank on the cable top 150 for the second week in a row. This was the lowest total audience since the November 25 Thanksgiving episode, and the second lowest audience ever since the move to Access TV in December 2019. Impact viewership for Thursday was down 53.4% from the same week in 2021, while the key demo rating was down 50% from the episode that aired 1 year before. Of course, that episode aired on Tuesdays, back when Impact was on Tuesdays and not on Thursdays. Now, of course, NCAA March Madness games dominated the cable top 150 that night, obviously basketball games, and that would obviously is probably most likely the reason for the numbers going down. But the point is that it's not good for Impact. And look, I sound like a broken record. I think the move back to Thursdays, of course, hurt them. They had a decent thing going on Tuesdays. Obviously, then with NXT moving back to Tuesdays, that really hurt them, and they had to get away from them. But it does make you wonder, doesn't it? In reality, should they have just stuck with Tuesday? They might as well just stuck with Tuesday. With the way things are going, they might as well just stuck with Tuesday, because the competition that they have most Thursdays when it comes to NBA or NCAA are frankly the same as having a wrestling show on the same night. They might as well just stuck with what they are. As I mentioned before, I don't think Impact Wrestling really thought they were going to do as well as they did throughout the pandemic. The fact that there were no spoilers and you legitimately had to tune into Impact Wrestling every single week to find out what was going to happen because no spoilers existed is a massive, massive, massive part of this. I really do think that. Plus, of course, we know the exposure of Access TV is so limited. A lot of the comments I see are like, I've got really high-end cable package and I still can't get Access TV and all that kind of stuff. That's a problem. Granted, and this is always the thing that people say to me is, Owen, but there are multiple ways to watch Impact, and Impact are aware of this issue. That's why they have the Impact Ultimate Insider package on YouTube. That's why they have it, right? So they will be concerned about this. There's no doubt they will. I think they'll be hoping as they get closer to Rebellion and maybe as they get closer to Slammiversary, things will change. But until they either go live or they move to another network, cable network, or until they just I don't know. Like I said before, I'd even go as far as to say to people in attendance, look, if you attend the show, as part of signing your ticket, you sign an NDA. You cannot say anything. If you say what happens, if spoilers get out there, you're banned from ever returning. I don't know. You know, I honestly think that's the best way to go, because I think the fact that people didn't know what was going to happen before on Impact Wrestling was a massive advantage to them. It really was. Plus other stuff they had going on, but that was a massive advantage. So, let me know what you think is the way to resolve this issue, or do you see it even as a big issue? Is this a case of Impact are very diverse when it comes to their ratings? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Anyway, guys, be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, to Wrestling News 365, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.